Survivors of sexual assault have to contend with both trauma and shame. That's why it's so important to protect their privacy. But survivors also need to be heard and get support, especially from people who share their experience. That's the reason for a new organization, the Millions of Women Sexual Assault Movement. We'd like to welcome its founder and CEO, Dr. Marlyne Campbell. Thank you very much for being with us.
And thank you for having me, Chris.
Talk about your own story and your efforts to be heard and how that was so frustrating for you.
It was, being a 35-year-old seasoned pastor here in Massachusetts, and have been at a lot of times when I've counseled people with sexual assault or encouraged parents of murdered children that maybe their child, before they were murdered, they were sexually assaulted, but never in my wildest imagination would have thought it would happen to me. Being my age, it happened 10 months ago at the return. In fact, it was not 10, it's October 2015. And this happened on a bus returning from Washington, D.C. And to have to come back home to even discuss it after the wonderful time we experienced with over 1 million men, predominantly black men, coming back from the 10-10-15, and to be on a bus with someone that was an assailant, that was a perpetrator. It shocked me because it's not a subject that you talk about that often, and especially in the black community. So to have to come back home and go back to the organizers of this event and say, I was sexually assaulted on that bus. And to see people really shun me, dismiss me, that angered me, because I said, as a 65-year-old senior citizen, if they are dismissing me, what are they doing with my children? What are they doing with youth? What are they doing with teenagers? So, Chris, to tell you the truth, I took lemons and turned it into lemonade, and started Millions of Women Sexually Assault Movement, and really got involved with the library, because that was a designated place. I didn't have any money. So I said, let me go to the library and see if they'll let me have what they call a roundtable. The roundtable wasn't so much to bring in the sexual assault from the DA's office, the sexual assault from MOVA, Massachusetts Office of Victim Assistance. It wasn't so much bringing in agencies and the stakeholders. It was to bring awareness and bring some kind of resources to the table. As I began to talk about it, and so many people shunned me, I said, wow. And I looked at the statistics that actually, one of the statistics that talked about 1 out of 6 out of 10 African-American girls that have been sexually assaulted, attempted, or actually happening. And that was alarming to me. And so that's what made me start Millions of Women for the community.
You started these meetings at the Mattapian Library, and I have to picture this, thinking that, should I do this? I mean, who's going to come? And if they come, will they talk? I mean, what was it like for you?
Yeah. What happened is, as I began, I have a prayer line for 4 years every Thursday night called The Breath of Fresh Air. Most people on the prayer line are elderly people. They can't get out to church or things like that. And I encourage them. I came back to that prayer line and shared with them my experience. And they began to tell me, I too am a survivor, and never talked about it. I too am a survivor and didn't have nowhere to talk about it to anyone. Some say it happened when I was 10, 3 years old, 10 years old, by a family member. And I said, oh my gracious. So then I began to do, again, additional statistics that most perpetrators, 90% of perpetrators, are never apprehended. So that means it's almost like being a woman pastor. It's almost like when I first started, and you know me for over 35 years, when I first started.
37 years.
Oh, is it been 35? You're good, you're good. So you know I've been out here, and I know the challenges I've had as a woman pastor. Now I have to come back to the community and say I was sexually assaulted. It was devastating. But what happened is those elderly people gave me encouragement. And someone suggested, well, since you don't have any money, let's go to the library. So when I start trying to reach out to agencies that, one, I knew had money, two, they were the stakeholders, 3, I went to Department of Public Health, and there's a gentleman down there named Mr. Leonard Lee. He shared with me what organization in Massachusetts has the sexual assault money. I went to them. Yes, they didn't really receive me with joy, but I kept at it. And now, 7 months later, the seventh month, the program that we had the other day at the library, that was the 6th roundtable, and their brand new staff person that they created a position for at this particular anti-violent sexual assault agency, created a position, and they graced our meeting on Saturday. And it was so heartwarming that they hired someone to help people like myself, other agencies that want to deal with sexual assault. Now, the other piece of this is how well will they step up to the plate? Because we do have needs. We need a machine where we can make copies instead of asking 5 people, 10 people, can I have 50 copies? Can I have 500 copies, 2 copies? Because outside the stations, the T-stops, a week before our roundtable, every 4th Saturday of the month, we literally get 2 and 3 people to pass out flyers about sexual assault. You say, well, why don't you put it on social media? We do. But can you imagine on social media, if you're not used to talking about sexual assault and you're seeing something, you kind of dismiss it. But I notice, especially young people, I notice their faces. It's like, oh, someone's talking about sexual assault. Oh yeah, I'm going to be there. This past Saturday, August, the 4th Saturday, it was a lot of young people, over 15 young people in their 20s. That was like, yes. So I'm just sharing with you that I am getting traction.
We're talking with Dr. Marlyne Campbell from the Millions of Women Sexual Assault Unit. Tell me how this works, or how you see this working, because people come, they talk, they meet each other, they sympathize with each other, but what is the next step?
You know what? I'll say 3 words. I'm still learning. I don't know. I know I need help. I know that we need psychologists, psychiatrists. We do we do book a room at the library. You can book a little room for an hour and a half, just in case someone needs to talk after the meetings. So that's one thing. And the organization called BARC, Boston Area Rape Crisis Center, at our first roundtable, they paid for one of their counselors to come to our meeting just in case someone wanted to talk after. So we had booked a room. That was back in March. So it did work in regards to at least with providing some place after. Because what I'm finding out, when the spiritual piece of this as a pastor, after you divulge or you talk to someone, you usually need that healing piece of it. You need to be comforted. You need to, when I say comforted, you need to know that you're not alone, that there's others, that we will listen. And naturally, they do have 1-800 numbers. An organization called RAINN, RAINN. It's a national organization. And then in Massachusetts, you have BARC. But I would like to see more of the stakeholders in Massachusetts step up to organizations like myself.
You mentioned that if people would like to know more about this, there are a couple of ways they can tune in. One is a show on BNN, and you also have another event coming up at the library.
The 16th of September. From 4 to 5 o'clock on a Friday. Usually my shows are on a Friday. So it's called Unmasking Sexual Assault. And that could be various ways to unmask sexual assault. If you would allow me to be so transparent, when our elite colleges years ago brought blacks from Africa, and they had to work free of charge at the Harvards, at the Tufts. Georgetown, as you know, was just on in regards to making some amends. More than likely, some of those slaves were also raped. So you may say so when you talk about unmasking sexual assault, you have to be inclusive of some of the ancestry issues and challenges my ancestors went through in regards to being raped, even during slavery. So when we're talking about bringing people in, a lot of people may not want to deal with things like that. but it's something we really need to start dealing with.
You're breaking a cycle. And your next meeting at the library?
The next meeting of the library is the 24th, the fourth Saturday, every fourth Saturday at 10 a.m. And we're also looking for restaurants that would donate our lunch.
And if people want to find out more, you get a web page
Yes.
or anything?
No, I don't have a web page, but I do have a 15-minute video called Millions of Women's Sexual Assault Movement, hosted by Dr. M. Campbell. And also my telephone number is 508-617-4172.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Dr. Marlyne Campbell will have more news in just a moment.